Over my many years of building LEGO Minecraft models, I've tackled pretty much every structure you can find in the game. There's the desert well, the igloo with the creepy basement, the pillager outpost, plenty of villages of course, and even some of the game's largest structures like the desert pyramid and the ancient city. But one structure I've not tried yet is a trail rune. In fact, I don't think I've ever even come across one in game. But thanks to your suggestions, I've decided that this new world might be the perfect place for one of these. So break out your shovels and your brushes, and let's get to building. Hey, I'm gonna briefly interrupt your regularly scheduled programming to let you know that the LEGO Minecraft world is going to be on display April 18th at the Mankato Bricks and Minifigures store, and also you'll be able to find it this year at Brick Days Omaha on April 25th and 26th. These are indeed the last planned public appearances of the display in its entirety, so if you're in the area, it would be great to meet you. I'm gonna leave details about both events in the description below. Alright, now on to the video. Aside from some of the finer details, I had actually planned out the entirety of this Savannah Village series even before I began building episode 1. I've got all the individual modules and assets in one rather ridiculous but beautiful world to reference as I build. The seed is actually, fittingly, a windswept Savannah Village you can find right off spawn. When it came time to finally start this module for episode 5, I realized that this build was pretty lame. It's a small farm to pair with the farmhouse from episode 2 and more water. Considering how much water we already did in episodes 1 and 2, this seemed like a pretty uninteresting use of space, and that's when I remembered those suggestions for the trail rune. What if this little lake became an excavation site instead? And so that brings us back to the base of our module, where I've assembled a pretty chaotic selection of blocks to represent the trail rune. As a refresher, I'll walk you through which block is which. This here is the coarse dirt block built out of reddish brown with some added texture in the design. I actually hit a few of these in the zombie dungeon module, and there'll be lots more to come. This is going to be light gray terracotta, one of my favorite blocks because it's nearly a perfect match for sand red. When I built the first LEGO Minecraft world, I used sand red pieces for the first time to represent this block in the Badlands module. Then I'll be adding in some diorite, a block you probably recognize from the last episode. This is all done up in light bluish gray, but I'd love to make it out of very light bluish gray if LEGO ever brought that color back. Here's yellow terracotta, which was featured in the last 2 Savannah Village structures. It's made using LEGO's bright light orange color. We'll also be using some purple terracotta in this module, which unsurprisingly uses LEGO's dark purple. I should have included this in the pyramid module from the old world, but I think my brain was just fried after making that behemoth. From what I can tell, white terracotta is typically the block you'll see exposed on the surface, so we definitely need to include some of that here. This is LEGO's light nougat color. I've also used this before in Minecraft Badlands builds. A very exciting new block I'll be adding here though is the light gray glazed terracotta block. LEGO's actually made a special print for this that came out in the Armory set. And there's a few other sets that have come with various colors of these. One for the purple glazed terracotta and one for white glazed terracotta. I really hope we see more in the future. They are quite pretty. There's actually a few Savannah Village structures that make use of some other colors too. But one of the most important blocks here is going to be gravel. Now, as far as I can recall, I don't think I actually ever used regular gravel in the entirety of the old LEGO Minecraft world. The last time I made gravel might have been for my first LEGO Minecraft mock back in 2019. I'm guessing most of you haven't even seen this one before. I made this mock essentially as an elaborate way to display all of my mobs at the time. It was really quite fun. Since that was so long ago, the gravel texture was in need of a bit of updating. Here I've used a mix of old dark gray, old light gray, and then the new light bluish gray. Weirdly enough, it's the 1x1 tile and dark gray at the top that's the hardest element to source. It only ever came in 6 sets and costs about 50 cents a piece. Thankfully, I had the big red train shed as a kid, so I was able to source enough from that to complete this module. That set is so cool, by the way, and I do really miss train stuff, especially 9V. Gravel is going to play an important role here, as you'll find a ton within a trail rune, and don't forget, some of it might be suspicious gravel too. Alright, back to the module, and let's do a bit of tiling to start things out. I'm pretty eager to start the trail rune structure itself, because it's got a lot of interesting blocks like the glazed terracotta here. I'm using this sub-assembly that has the tiles on both sides, so it'll look good from multiple directions. I've approximated the texture on top with just a mixture of regular pips and plates. I'll be adding 2 of these sub-assemblies to the larger structure, one of these 3-block sections, and then a smaller 2-block section as well. That armory set came with no less than 8 of these prints, so I've got all sorts to use. Atop the glazed terracotta, I'll put the sand red, or our light gray, stained clay. The 3-block long section ends up working pretty well because the only tiles that exist in sand red are 1x6 tiles from a Star Wars set. There's technically also grill tiles, but they're just a little less useful for Minecraft builds. These are from the other great sand red set, which of course is Aerotube Hangar from Life on Mars. I pre-made a bunch of gravel blocks along with some white stained clay, and those I'm just gonna scatter around here, all giving the impression that this is a half-excavated rune. In the back here, you'll see that I've left a lot of tiles leading into the furthest point of the module. This is actually going to be a little tunnel that connects to the cave that we made in episode 2. I want to make sure that that's still visible even when there's an extra module in front of it. Now, because I tiled off the sand red earlier, I've got to be a bit creative since I want to put blocks on top of that stained clay yet. So I made this complicated little sub-assembly to attach into that nougat snot brick. It'll all remain plenty sturdy without having to be connected to the bottom. Building with these discontinued colors is one of my favorite parts of the LEGO Minecraft series because I think it's in a simple environment like we find in LEGO Minecraft that colors can really pop and shine, maybe more so than in your standard LEGO Medieval mock or something of that nature. This ultimately is a really simple shape here, but I think it captures a whole story, and that's largely due to the colors and how easily recognizable it makes each individual block. I'm going to try to make the outside walls of the module as interesting as I can by adding some additional detail with some coal ore and then some good old diorite. And then we can go ahead and build up the rest of this, which is going to primarily be dirt until we get to the surface of the module. And here too, you'll get a little better idea of that tunnel in the back that's leading to the episode 2 cave. In episode 2, I did actually light up the furnace in that cave, so you should be able to see a bit of a faint glow and hopefully some of the action that's going on inside. It'll be a great little Easter egg for people to point out at conventions and such. And hopefully this display will be able to go to a ton of conventions because it's going to be a lot easier to transport than the original 50+ module LEGO Minecraft world. The next step in the build is going to be prepping what is going to be a pretty complicated grass layer above. It's going to feature a mixture of paths and farmland, both of which I'll be indenting that classic Cheesy Studios half a plate. I'm breaking out the same technique that I've been using throughout this series, and things should look really nice once we get this all properly tiled off. I've got another interesting little structure plan for the opposite side for the actual trail rune excavation itself. This is going to be a player-made enhancement, not something you'll actually find in-game, but I think it's going to add a lot of character and storytelling to this place. It's just going to be a bit of scaffolding made out of some wooden planks. A bit of player infrastructure to help aid the excavation process. It also gives us just a bit more surface area to work with in the future should I ever add more players and mobs to this scene. Another useful addition to this space would be some lighting, which will be provided by a lantern. So this is the design I've come up with. It's actually built upside down using one of those new rounded inverted 1x1 clip bricks. And once again, thank you to Light My Bricks for supplying the lighting for the entirety of this series. I've installed one of their micro bulbs inside this lamp. I think it's going to look really, really cool. The big thing I need to figure out is how to make this wire disappear. But we'll worry about that later. Let's add a little bit of a ladder going down into the excavation itself. Thankfully, we've got that brand new lovely ladder piece introduced last year. You'll see I switched up the texture of the wood here. That's because these are going to be oak logs, and I'm using the vertical profile bricks here to represent the bark on the tree. This is a technique I've used plenty times before, even within this series for acacia logs. And then the other wooden planks are meant to represent spruce planks, and for those, I use the other side of a masonry brick. The scaffolding sure looks nice, but the other side of the module is a giant mess. Let's clean this up a bit so we can eventually tile it all off. With the indentations for the paths and the farmland, it is going to look a little bit chaotic, and that's because I'm using colors that you aren't going to see at the end of the day. These light gray 1x2 by 1 2/3, try saying that fast, snot bricks are really inexpensive thanks to their abundant use in so many brickhead sets over the years. And unfortunately, brown versions of the part are just quite rare still at this point. My wire hub is going to be under the farmland, so I do need to find a way to get the wire of the lantern over to the other side of the module. Thankfully, these wires are really thin. They can easily fit between plates without disrupting or causing gaps in the build. The only problem is that I literally have a single block's worth of space to make it travel along. So instead of building it out of bricks, I'm just gonna pile it up with plates. And I can definitely hear some of those brittle brown plates snapping, but we're just not gonna think too much about that. Things are gonna start to make a lot more sense once I get this last bit of the surface installed. There's just gonna be a slight height increase here by a single block to help match up with the other module, the farmhouse module, which this is going to eventually connect to. And in this topmost part of the module, this last surface bit, I've actually pre-installed another lighting up torch. You'll find these naturally generating around the farmland in-game so that the crops can grow even at night. No new crazy techniques here. This is the same torch I used in the other episodes, but hopefully we'll get that 1x1 pip element in transparent yellow at some point to be a little bit more accurate to the actual in-game torch texture. For now, it only comes in orange, so we're just gonna use that. One of the more foolish decisions that I've made throughout this series is really burying the wire hubs that are present on each of these modules. Every time I have to move the display, it becomes quite a pain to rewire the whole thing because some of them are really hard to access, especially in the case of the first module where you literally have to flip it upside down to access the ports. This time I put the hub right next to the edge so it's really easy to wire things together. If for some reason you are also crazy enough to do an episodic series like this where you're building one module at a time, remember to make sure that they're easy to wire together and easy to take apart. Anyway, let's tile this off. Next up, we'll tackle the farmland. Now, Savannah Village farms tend to have a variety of crops in them, so I want to bring that here. It'll make this patch of farmland all the more colorful because of it. Up first is going to be one of my favorite crops, which is the melon. In the past, I've used yellow nozzle pieces for this, but I feel the more muted tan probably is a bit more realistic to the current texture in the game. LEGO did indeed produce a specialized melon head block similar to the pumpkin one they still use today, and it's exclusive to the melon farm set, fittingly enough. I really wish they'd bring this back though, it's a lovely little element. As for the other crops, I'll be including carrots here. It just gives that nice little orange color. We have plenty of dark orange in this build, but this will be a nice place for that brighter, classic LEGO orange. And then also I want to come up with a new design for basic wheat. Wheat was my main crop of choice when I did my original beachside savanna in the classic LEGO Minecraft world, and I used essentially a modified version of LEGO's design, which used bright green and bright light orange. This texture is more in line with the older in-game textures where the wheat did have a more yellow hue. In modern versions of the game, it's more tan, so I'm going to try to use some tan bricks here instead. And to differentiate the texture from the carrots, I've used the too long pneumatic bar piece in addition to the minion hair in tan. Next, we'll get the glorious olive green grass stems in place. And as a bit of a last minute addition, I thought it might be fun to add a player-built scarecrow here. This is a technique that I'm borrowing from my old pillager outpost, and believe it or not, it is made of all LEGO elements. Apparently these red rubber bands have come in over 90 sets over the years. Let's check out the lights. It's simple, but quite elegant. I rather love it. and it's amazing to see how much better the build feels with the addition of 2 tiny LED bulbs. It's proper LEGO magic. Of course, we'll need to add a few mobs and figures to the module, like the Mothman from the new Pale Garden set. This skin is so much fun. And I'm also going to add in some new custom baby chickens. Some members on my Discord came up with this adorable technique using the Minecraft axolotl face. It's absolutely brilliant, and you always get an extra one of these plates in these sets anyway. In fact, these chicks are entirely made up of extra pieces. And with that, the Trail Runes module is done, and it's ready to be added into the larger display. Here you can see it'll be going right in front of the farmhouse module from episode 2, and hopefully you'll still be able to see a bit into that cave down there. This module really became something special, and I'm so glad you all convinced me to try my hand at a trail rune. I've always shrugged the structure off as rather pointless, but it turned out to be really fun to build, and adding in the player-built structures alongside it made it even better. Between the purple clay, lime green melons, and yellow hay bale, this is probably one of the most colorful modules yet too, a rather far cry from my original plans. So keep the ideas coming no matter how zany. I might just be able to incorporate them yet.
And speaking of your ideas, there's one last addition I'd like to make for this episode. You can't really have a savannah without armadillos, and you all have been asking for these little guys. So thank you to LEGO for sending over the Armadillo Mine Expedition set. This is pretty much the perfect introductory savannah biome set, and for now at least, it's the only set to actually include the armadillos. Beyond that, it's just a great terrain parts pack with a lot of very usable basic brown and gray bricks. I've done a whole separate review video on this set if you're interested. For the armadillo, I've modified the official design just a touch with these 1x1 brackets for feet so as to get the striping more consistent along the sides of the critter. And for the time being, I'll be placing him alongside the farm. Hopefully, I'll find room for the second armadillo in a future episode. And speaking of future episodes, next time we'll be adding another new structure to the village. And this is an important one, the blacksmith. I don't know about you guys, but it's still the first building I look for when I stumble across a village in-game. If you want to watch that video right now, you can actually do so by becoming a channel member. If you ever wonder how I could afford all these bricks to create this series, it's all thanks to the list of people you see here on the left. If you want to help support the making of these videos and get early access to all future episodes, click the join button down below or follow the link I've put in the description. The support means a ton, and I appreciate you taking a look. But that's going to be all for this episode. Be sure to check out my Sulfur Cave video if you haven't seen that already. And until next time, have yourself a great life.